Hi everyone. So today we have guest Ted Messimer, also known as Southernmost Ted. Ted grew up in southwest Florida and currently resides in the enchanted Florida Keys. As a seasoned master storyteller for the Key West Ghost and Mysteries Tour, Ted's passion has been dedicated to sharing knowledge on paranormal research and delving into the rich history of the island that has captured his heart, accumulating nearly 20 years of expertise. Ted has written over 8 books with another one in the works. His literary journey began with documenting paranormal activity and historical narratives, paving the way for his transition to fiction novels. Beyond the realm of storytelling, his interests span across music, photography, and the culinary arts. During his leisure time, you might find Ted navigating the intricate mangroves on a kayak, traversing mountainous landscapes on horseback, exploring trails in national forests, or fearlessly venturing into abandoned and haunted buildings, armed with only a camera and his sharp wit. That sounds like fun to me. In August of 2022, Ted faced a formidable challenge with the diagnosis of stage 4 brain cancer, known as glioblastoma. Undeterred by this terminal illness, he transformed into a vocal advocate within the glio community, championing awareness and actively contributing to the fight for a cure. Despite the hurdles posed by his health, Ted remains determined in his pursuits, embodying the mantra of keep on keeping on. I actually had the privilege of going on one of Ted's tours a couple weeks ago when I was visiting Key West, and I had the best time. I'm so excited for you guys to hear about his story and all that he has to share on Spooky Key West. Thank you so much, Ted, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. So, with my guests, I really like to start at the very beginning. And I
Okay.
know you're super into the spooky and the paranormal. And is that something that you've always taken an interest in?
Yeah, I pretty much since sixth grade. I would say starting in sixth grade because we had to do a book report on whatever book we could find in the library, right? And I chose Peanuts. Remember the comic?
Yeah.
That didn't go over too well. They said pick something else. So in the back corner of our elementary school library, keep in mind, there was a section on occult. We're talking, vampires, witches, whatever. Don't ask me why that section was in a sixth grade library, but it was. And I started reading those books. I go, wow, this stuff is really cool. So I did a book report on that, and from there on, I was into it.
Do you remember what it was in the occult that you had read, or it was
Uh, I think it was just something that nobody else was into. It kind of freaked everybody else out, and my parents said no. So sixth grade mental kid that, so yeah, this is for me.
yeah, that's crazy that
No, it,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's just something that clicked for me. It was something that really caught my interest. And at the time, teachers, my parents were happy I was taking an interest in anything but for school. So like, okay, well, if this is what's working, we'll go with this.
Exactly. So after the sixth grade, from there on out, was it something that you kind of just continued to take a liking
Oh
to
yeah. Oh,
into a
definitely,
little bit
definitely.
more?
But back then, it was just to rebel. 'Cause
Right.
that's what we're all about at that age. If it goes against the system, I'm into it 100%. But it actually did catch my interest. And I go, this is actually kind of cool stuff. I started getting into it a lot more, started studying it, started looking into it. And from there, I got into ghost and stuff like that.
That's awesome. And you're originally from Southern Florida, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nice. What was,
Southwest, South,
oh, sorry.
Southwest Florida,
Nice.
Naples.
What was it like growing up? Did you have any like local lores or any myths in
Well,
Southern?
I mean, I wasn't really into like doing hunts and research at that time. So just a teenager at that time. But the local lore and myth back then, the big thing, since it's a small town and nothing ever happens, was what they call the Blood Barrel, and the Cracker Barrel restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they're up in like the Fort Myers area. There was an employee that went a little off the wall and shot a few people up, and from there, I just kind of got that nickname.
Oh no
But
way.
yeah. But then other than that, we have our version of Bigfoot from the Everglades.
And what's
You
that
know,
called?
skunk ape,
Oh wow.
because it looks like an ape that walks around, and you can tell he's around if you're in the Everglades because it smells like a skunk in the area all of a sudden.
And there are different reported sightings and things like that that people have seen.
Oh, yeah, just like Bigfoot,
Oh, that's crazy.
Some are legit, and some are maybe not.
Yeah. Did you have anything surrounding like the Bermuda Triangle or anything with like water or ships or anything like that?
Bermuda Triangle, I mean, that's all scientific stuff with magnetics in the area.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that lore has been debunked over the years, but and nothing with UFOs or anything crazy like that.
I feel like that must be one of the only areas in the United States that don't really have as many UFO stories. Because I feel like a lot of
Well,
other places do.
we have all our military.
Oh,
So anything see flying around in the sky, weirdly, you can say, oh, that's probably military.
yeah, you kind of just crossed that off. Nice.
Yeah.
So growing up, as you were into the paranormal, did you have any experiences that kind of opened your mind?
Oh gosh, so many. I would say, gosh, let me think here. I would say when I was out camping with some friends, we well, two things actually. One was good, one was bad. The good one was we came across someone who claimed to be Jesus Christ on his 40-day fast. And, we like 17, 18. We're out in the woods, just bumming around, doing what teenagers do in the woods, camp out and everything. But he came across what we called woods people. That in South Florida, we call them woods people. There's homeless people living out in the woods. And we ran across this one. He claimed to be Jesus on his 40-day fast. We're just teenagers, just like, yeah, okay, man. Peace. Good for you. Keep on keeping on. Uh, decades down the road, I'm thinking, you know what? It might have actually been Jesus because he didn't smell like your typical homeless person, but he kind of looked like one. And everything he was saying was kind of legit, and he was really nice, and he wasn't asking for any money or anything. But then the other was in, again, camping out in South Florida. We were out playing war games as teenagers. Also, often back there we used BB guns, not airsoft or anything, or paintball. But we had a really freaky experience where we could just feel his presence stalking us. You ever get that heebie-jeebie feeling where there's something there, and it's not right, it's not good, and it's so ominous and so strong. And then we did come across. I was in the lead of the pack, leading my friends down the trail, and I saw this shadow, tall, shadow-like figure, and it had hooves and everything else along with this. And it just had this evil presence. You could just feel it in your heart. And, back then I was fearless, especially when we were out playing in the woods. And I stopped in my tracks, dead halt stop. And my friends, they saw me stop, and we just like froze for like 5 minutes. And I told my friends, like, hold off. I'm squinting my eyes in the dark, trying to see what's up ahead. And nothing's happening, but you can just still feel this presence. Finally, after 5 minutes, I tell them, so this is what's going on. There's something else out here with us, and it's unworldly, but I'm not sure what it is. So, I guess we have these like fully automatic BB guns, and man, I just flay into the woods ahead of me, just complete like that. No reaction out of anything ahead of us, but
And that's wild.
we eventually moved on. But we went straight back to our cabin and shuttered that thing up and locked that thing up and didn't come out till the next morning.
Wow. So you actually felt it before you even saw the shadow. You could just.
Oh yeah. That's what made me stop. You just feel this presence. Like there's something. I can't see it. I can't hear it, but I know there's something there.
Do you have any idea what it could have been?
I think it was the devil, or at least a demon, because you could feel that presence.
Something dark.
Yeah, that was something scary.
Oh. So walk me through, you are living in Naples, and then how did you get to Key West?
Well, let's see. From Naples, I went to Gainesville for some school, and then from that, I went to Orlando for radio. Spent like 10 years in radio in the Orlando, Tampa area. And then after that, stayed in the area, but did entertainment for a theme park. And then in 2005, I decided to come to Key West.
Nice. So
I,
when you
I
Orlando and other parts of Florida, do you have any stories particular to those areas or anything that you'd like to share?
nothing ghostly in Orlando.
Okay.
No, that would be more at that time in my life. That'd be more spirited.
Yeah. Nice. So 2005, you moved to Key West,
Oh
and was
yeah.
it a big adjustment for you, or you felt right at home?
Well, kind of, because I mean, I've been coming to Key West all my life. Always loved it.
Mhm.
And in fact, when I was in radio, I was telling a mentor of mine, I'm going to move to Key West and do radio down there. And one of my mentors said, "Well, you're doing pretty good now. You've been in this 5 years. You're at the cusp of your career. You're on to the next big stage. If you go to a market like Key West, you're going to disappear, and you're going to ruin your career." So I listened to him, and I spent another 5 or 6 years in that career and had a fun time. But eventually, the time came for me where it's like I got to go to Key West because that's where I belong. Central Florida just wasn't kicking it for me. I miss being on the water. A lot of people in Orlando say, "We have Cocoa and Tampa." I'm like, no, it's not the same as being on the water
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a unique feel to Key West. It just feels like somewhere
yeah,
completely different than the rest of Florida.
because it is
So what was it like your first few years living there?
a struggle, as it is for anyone. I mean, this is a small knit town, and like any small knit town anywhere in the country, we all know everyone knows each other,
Mhm.
and people look at you side eyed when you first move here because people come and go. So nobody's going to invest their time in you until you put your time in, especially a place like Key West where people come and go all the time because they come here thinking, well, I had such a great time on vacation. I want to live there. And after 6 months, they realize it's nothing like vacation when you actually live here. You got to work. There's bills to pay. Nobody told me that. That's kind of unfair. So a
Yeah.
lot of people do come and go. And after your first 2 or 3 years here, you find out it's not worth the time and effort investing in friendships on new people when they're not even going to, stay. So nowadays, if someone moves in and you make that connection, you're like, oh, well, let's see if you stay here. And they don't invest more time in you. So it is a struggle when you first get here to make friends. It's not until after the first year goes by that people start inviting you to like the local holiday parties and whatnot.
Yeah, and I'm sure even with the seasons too, people coming down for certain months and then maybe going
Mm-hmm.
back,
Oh yeah.
a lot of the seasonal crowd also. So when you moved to Key West, did you immediately kind of check out the ghost stories and the paranormal, or did you?
Well, I got lucky. I got real lucky because I was already into it. And when I came to Key West, the first thing you have to do is find a job because you can't make plans to move down here. You can't call somebody and an employer and say, "Hey, will you hire me?" Then they'll hire you. Then you move down. No, you got to move down here and then get a job because, like I said, it's so transient. Nobody down here wants to hire somebody that's thinking about moving here. They want somebody that's, can you start tomorrow?
Right.
So basically, you come down without a job, which is a risk because it's a lot of rent to pay,
Yeah.
especially without a job. You got to make it happen quick, and your resume down here means nothing. What you did in your past life means absolutely positively nothing. That's why you'll see a lot of former lawyers and doctors, wedding tables, tending bar, but it doesn't matter because they're living in Key West, man. And that's all that really matters. That was the only goal. So when I first got down here, I'm walking up and down Duval, filling out applications for bartender, retail, whatever. None of these jobs I had never done in my life. No experience handling money, nothing at all. But I'm in Key West. I got all this. I paid a huge deposit. I got all this rent due in 10 days. I got to figure something out. So I'm filling out applications everywhere. I stop in the Margaritaville restaurant and I see this pamphlet for a tour called Trails and Tales of Margaritaville. It was a walking Jimmy Buffett drinking tour. I go, okay, well, that's cool. That's entertainment. That's down my line. So I called the number on the brochure, and the guy said, well, I'm not hiring for that tour right now, but I do have a ghost tour I do, and we can talk about that. I go, that's great. Because see, the way it originally panned out, I called for the Jimmy Buffett thing. I said, hey, my name's Ted. I just moved here from Orlando. I have a lot of experience in the entertainment business. I know a lot about Jimmy Buffett, probably more than anybody else. What do you say? And that's when he told me, well, not hiring for this, but I have a ghost tour. And I said, well, hey, my name's Ted. I just moved here from Orlando. I have a lot of experience in the entertainment business. I know a lot about ghosts more than anybody else. What do you say? So he invited me over for an interview. I was by 2 blocks from his house when I called him, actually. So I met him on his porch, and he was dressed to the nines, because that's how we do it in Orlando. He's in just shorts, flip-flops, and a Hawaiian shirt. I hand him my resume, and he just takes 10 seconds looking at that. He goes, oh, that's nice. Rips it up and says, now tell me about yourself. So then he cracked open a beer, and we spent about an hour talking on the porch about this and that and the life in the entertainment business. And then he's, well, I do the ghost tour. We have one going out tonight. Why don't you come out free tonight, observe the tour, tell me what you think about it, call me tomorrow, and tell me if you think it's something you want to do. Of course, I already knew the answer to that. Duh. It's better than working retail or slinging beers, because I've never done that before. And it sounds like it's right down my alley. Went on the tour, called him the next day, said, yeah, man, that's freaking awesome. I'm all in. Spent the next 2 weeks training, and here I am.
It was the perfect fit. It worked out.
Dude, it was perfect timing. I mean, had that job not been available at the time, who knows if I'd still be in Key West. I think that job is probably the one thing that's kept me in Key West.
So did you give tours since 2005, or when you first started, it was 2005 for the tours?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Moved here in September 05. Started doing the tours, and then 2 weeks later, we had a massive hurricane come through that shut down the island for about a month. So I'm like, great. I get the dream of moving to Key West. I get a job, and now all of a sudden, there's no work available because there's been a hurricane and nobody's coming to the island. But yeah, made it through somehow. We squeaked by.
And that's awesome. And one thing I noticed is I feel like haunted tourism, dark tourism, and just ghost tours in general weren't really that popular back in maybe 2005. So the fact that you were doing it back then is awesome, because I feel like now they're kind of popping up in every city.
Well, I think ghost tours were more popular back then. They weren't just as many of them.
Oh,
it was more of a local, like every town had one or two. Key West at the time had two. And gosh, now we have like us and 12 copycats and a trolley. But that back then it was just 2 ghost tours, and they were very popular. There were a lot more people coming on ghost tours at that time, and I think the concept of ghost tours was a lot different at that time.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it has changed?
Just how the entire world has changed. People's attitude toward everything. Back then, ghost tours, people were just all hands into it. Everyone that was on the tour was totally in a ghost, totally wanted to experience ghosts and encounter ghosts and have a really good time doing it. Nowadays, people come out with the intention of having a skeptical approach and trying to disprove it. Or maybe it's somebody who doesn't even care about ghosts or care about history. They're just there because they're there.
Yeah, just along for the ride. And like you said, because there's a lot of saturation too, and even with just different shows on TV and just so many different ways of, the paranormal and stuff like that. Has your tour evolved over time? Do you have like a few of the same core places, or?
Yes, we've changed the tour up from here to there, change a route once in a while. And currently right now I have 4 or 5 different routes that I will do.
Oh, no way.
But over time we have changed like the main events on each tour. Some things have changed, stay the same, like Robert, he'll never go away. He'll always be with us because that's what everybody comes down for. They want to hear about Robert the Doll.
Yeah, for sure, which I want to get into. If you want to share just a little brief history on Key West and maybe why you think it's so haunted for people who don't know or who have never been there before.
Well, we're haunted for a couple of reasons. One, we're so old. We're the second oldest city in the state of Florida, only to St. Augustine being number one. Also, we're surrounded by water, and water creates energy. Ghosts thrive off energy. That's why you go anywhere in the country, the most haunted locations are always going to be by water. And you look at our sordid history. You know, Key West was not always this fun-loving, happy-go-lucky place. There was a time when this was a pretty rough place to live. I mean, you're talking about pirates, or you're talking about the wreckers, times before air conditioning, which I don't know why anybody would come here before air conditioning and say, man, this is a great place to be. This is where I want to be. It's so hot and uncomfortable here. This is awesome.
That's the thing too. I was loving the weather when I was there a few weeks ago in January, but I can't imagine in the middle of summer,
Mm-hmm.
how humid it is. Beautiful.
Right.
Still, sometimes I can imagine how hot it can be.
Yes. But with the hauntings beginning, I mean, we have a lot of native history here. Of course, the wrecking history, the pirate history, and just even in the 1980s, there was some questionable people walking around town that caused a lot of murders and whatnot.
It's different crimes and things like that.
Right.
So let's get into Robert the Doll a little bit. So if you
Okay.
want to start off by sharing who Robert the Doll is and the backstory on Robert.
Okay. Robert the Doll is a doll with a Santeria hex on him. He was given to Robert Eugene originally by his grandfather, because the doll came from the Stipe Company, and they're the inventors of the teddy bear. But is given to his grandfather as a companion, and then at that time in the 1900s, it was typical for boys to be giving dolls as companions to teach them how to become friends and interact with people. The nanny, they had a few nannies, but the one that was primarily responsible for taking care of Robert Eugene, she got caught having an affair with Gene's father, Dr. Otto. Of course, his wife didn't appreciate that, so she said, this nanny's got to go. She needs to be banished from the island, never return. Send her back to the Bahamas, where she came from. And they did that, but this nanny, she was the one responsible for raising Robert Eugene. She probably loved Robert Eugene more than his own parents did. So being that she was being banished from the island, never to see this boy that she cared for, she was going to be heartbroken. She wanted to give him a gift, but she's a poor nanny. She has nothing to buy. She has no money to buy him a gift. So she kind of re-gifted him that doll that was originally given by his grandfather. But she wanted to put some personalization into it. First, she was going to put a Santeria hex on it. And by hex, I mean just something to watch over the boy, Robert Eugene, to make it, he would be connected to this nanny always. She also wanted to make it look more like the boy. So she took a clown outfit off that the doll came in, took it off the doll and replaced it with one of Robert Eugene's personal sailor outfits. And these days, if you go out to the museum where he's kept, you'll see he's in a sailor outfit, and that's why. But over time, I guess the hex worked, because Robert Eugene did become obsessed with this doll. Anytime something bad happened in the house, he'd always blame it on Robert. Things would end up missing or broken. Maybe the nannies would mysteriously get injured, and his parents would yell at him, and he'd say, no, it wasn't me. It was Robert. Robert did it. Even in his older years, when he was an adult and married, he came back to Key West after moving away to Europe for a while, and he was reunited with the doll after being separated for it. And he was right back into his routine of blaming the doll for everything. And actually, when he got married, he beat his wife. Gene would beat his wife, but he said, no, I'm not doing this. It's the doll that's beating the wife. So same thing. He fell into his old habits with this doll. But nowadays, people think he's cursed. There's this misconception that if you're not right with him, he'll make bad things happen to you, or if you take photos of him without permission. It's not entirely true. If you're mean to him, yes, he's going to be mean to you back. But all he's doing is standing up for himself. For example, if somebody is mean to you, you're not going to be nice to them back, right? You'll stand up for yourself. And you're not being mean. You're just standing up for yourself. And that's what happens. You know, if people go out there to the doll and they make fun of them because they didn't believe the story they heard on the ghost tour, and they'll tell whoever they're with, so well, what? I'll prove this. Hey, you stupid looking doll, or whatever they want to call them. And then bad things happen to these people. Now, so he's a good doll. Remember, he was made out of love for love. His purpose was to watch over and take care of Gene, and that's precisely what that doll did. And now that his best friend Gene is gone, he's looking for new, friendly, happy people. Our current tourist, to come out and visit and say hi today and be nice to him. But as for the pictures, you can take photos, but a lot of people, I've heard them say, you're supposed to ask randomly when you walk in the museum, can I take Robert's picture? Well, there's 42 different spirits at the East Martella Museum that we know of, which is kind of funny because there's also 42 bridges that lead to Key West. 42 bridges, 42 spirits. But if you ask that question out loud randomly, how do you know it's Robert you're talking to? Or how does he really know you're talking to him? So what I always recommend to people is say, look him directly in the eyes, almost face to face, as much as you can between him and the glass. And you say out loud, say his name, say Robert. Say, my name's Ted. I saw you on television. I think you're super cool. I respect you. And I'd love to be your friend. And then give me your intent. So I'd like to take your picture, Robert. So I'm going to take your picture. And you do that and do your little Robert selfie and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, that's awesome because a lot of people, I've heard have had really bad experiences. And I know you even mentioned that you did an investigation at the museum before.
We did an investigation, and that's another thing. It's not necessarily just a person that makes fun of him could have something bad to him. It's anyone that happens to be in the room
that
really? Could have, because it could be even complete stranger. Say you and I are out visiting Robert. Well, you and I know each other. We're there visiting Robert together. But say some other stranger walks in at the same time and they start making fun of Robert. Well, Robert doesn't know that the three of us aren't together. That person might be with us. So he'll just randomly pick you or I. And you and I end up inadvertently cursed because of some stranger that we don't even know, which seems kind of unfair. So I always tell people, if you're in the museum and you see somebody else walk in and they look like somebody that might be a jerk, walk out. Don't be part of that. Don't be part of their bad juju.
Yeah, I'm glad I went on a slow day. I think it was just me and my dad in the room at that time, so that's good.
Yeah.
And it was nice because they even had like a donation box that you can leave like an offering for Robert.
It's a nice place to leave. It's a nice place to leave it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not even putting pressure on you, but
yeah.
Robert appreciates tips.
And it doesn't help when they have his the mailing address for people to send letters. If they
that does help because they, after they mess up and get home and realize they messed up and all these bad things happened, it helps to have an address that they can write an apology letter to. I ran into a guy years ago on the tour. He told me he had come back to Key West specifically to apologize to Robert. Because, people come to Key West for vacation, then the next vacation they might go somewhere else because you keep your vacations different. But he said he came down one year, went on a ghost tour, heard the story of Robert, didn't believe the story at all. So, of course, he went out and made fun of the doll, and he went over and beyond the expectations. He was like, hey, F you, F face, all that stuff. Really, really bad. And then I guess he got home from vacation. He was a general contractor. When he got home, he was doing some work, doing some construction. He tripped on the ladder, fell off the ladder, broke both his legs. He was out of work. Because of that, he lost his business. Then he lost his wife. Then he lost his home. Just one really rotten thing after another. So he figured that was because of Robert. So he came back to Key West the following year on vacation. One, to tell me that story. Two, to specifically go out and apologize to Robert face to face.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which I guess the doll left his mark, left his imprint, left an impression.
even on Google, I was kind of researching it a little bit before I went and just hearing a bunch of people saying that they had a similar experience or all of these bad things started
Hmm.
happening and just warning everyone else reading that was planning on going to just be respectful or don't take a picture at all.
Or just be nice.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Or just nice. Do you know any of the other spirits that could be in the museum, or are they just kind of
A,
residual?
a lot of Civil War soldiers that may
Okay.
have died of yellow fever, or doctors that died of yellow didn't make it through yellow fever.
And the house that Robert the Doll's from, you mentioned it's like a bed and breakfast now.
It is a bed and breakfast, and it has its hauntings. What's neat about that, and any other bed and breakfast in town, most of them actually, if you ask, will have what they have their ghost log underneath the front desk. And what it is, it's like, say you stay there and you go to the front desk and say, hey, is this place by chance haunted? Because we had some weird stuff happen. And the staff there will have the people write their story in the guest log. And a lot of the stories match up of things that happened, which is really cool.
That's really cool that they're all on the same page and they're recording it too.
Right. Well, and that's well, because they're not advertising it because a lot of people that stay in these bed B&Bs that are haunted and do have the stories. Not everyone is into ghost like you or I. They come to they're in and they're if their front desk person checking them in says, just so you know, this place is haunted. Some people are like, yeah. Give us our keys to our room. Where's Duval Street? We got some serious drinking to do. So not everyone here is into ghosts, but the people that are, they know.
Yeah. And that's one of the funny things too, is you would never know just walking past, these beautiful bed and breakfasts that tragedy may have happened there, or it was, the home of Robert the
Yeah,
Doll, for instance. So it's anywhere. And in the back of my head, going on a ghost tour, it's always like, what if you're staying at that one place that's now a bed and breakfast and
right.
you out on the ghost tour?
The thing about Key West, though, I think a lot of places still do have that haunted old look, which is why I appreciate being able to do ghost tours in Key West. Sometimes I take it for granted until I go on vacation and go in another, like a big city and go on a ghost tour. And it doesn't have that creepy feeling because it's a big city with, those tall glass Capital One buildings or whatever. Like, I don't feel like I'm in a haunted environment. But in Key West, the whole area feels like a stage for ghost tours, which is awesome.
For sure. It still has its charm. And I even noticed, which my dad even pointed out, once the sun sets, it kind of has a different vibe there at night
Yeah,
during
yeah,
the day.
it can, especially if you get off Duval Street, get off the beaten path.
Yeah. It gets real quiet and it's almost just like the energy changes a little bit.
And you get in some of those dark alleyways, and you're going, maybe we should be somewhere a little more well lit.
Yeah. So another point I wanted you to talk about it a little bit, just sharing a little bit of history on Count Karl von Kassel.
Uh-huh. What would you like to know?
Maybe just sharing a little bit of the background for any of the listeners who don't know about the story.
Okay, well, he came to us from Germany because the Nazis wanted him to work for them, but he didn't want anything to do with that. So he escaped to Central Florida with his wife and two daughters, and he didn't want the Nazis after his wife and daughters, so he left them in Central Florida and separated himself. Eventually found his way here to Key West, changed his name to Count Karl von Kassel, and got a job immediately as an X-ray technician at the Marine Hospital. While he's working there, a girl much younger than him walks in. Her name is Elena Hoyos. He fell in love with her immediately, and he volunteers to diagnose her for free because he's in love. You're a pretty girl. I'll give you the free diagnosis, of course. She's diagnosed with tuberculosis. He does everything he can to keep her alive. Unfortunately, he's unsuccessful. 3 years went by. She did die of tuberculosis. She's then, given her funeral and laid to rest. But about 6 months go by, and Count von Kassel was thinking, well, this is not right. There's much better than just a little box and a little hole. So he went to go get her grave, dig her up, and then do some reconstructive surgery on her to kind of bring her back to life in his own eyes. He used mortician's wax and silk to take care of decomposure. Whenever her hair fell out, he would collect the hair and make a wig out of it. He put her in a beautiful white wedding dress, so she'd be dressed appropriately for, a wedding, so he could marry her. Then they spent the next 7 years together as a married couple. And while he was living on the far end of Flagler Avenue, out by a warehouse, he was just living out there, doing his thing with his wife, Elena Hoyos, taking great care of her and living a married life in every single way. I'll let that sink in.
And how long did he have her corpse for before?
7 years. 7 years.
And you showed us on the tour a photo, and I couldn't believe how well
how well preserved she was.
Yes.
How talented he was.
Yes. Especially
but you got to remember, he was doing a lot of reconstructive surgery on her. That was a lot of what you see of that is, mortician's wax and silk. There's not a whole lot of the real her left. But he did make a special lovemaking device for her that he did use.
Oh, wow.
And that was proven in his court case, which is, that's taking it to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. That's the next level. So how did he end up getting caught?
People were talking about it. People were definitely talking about it. And people did come over and police came over and investigated him. There was a full investigation on it. He did go to court for it, but he was released because at that point it had been a little bit over 7 years and the statute of limitations had expired. And what he was accused of was grave robbing, which he did do. He did rob that grave, but the statute had expired, so they couldn't get him on it anymore. And people will ask, well, yeah, but he slept with a dead girl. And if you look into it and look it up, there's no crime against necrophilia, which there probably should be.
Yeah,
and maybe there is now. Who knows? But back then, there's nobody that said nope, necrophilia is illegal. So the only crime he was guilty of was grave robbing, and the statute and that had expired. So they had to let him go. And they said, okay. Well, he said, well, thanks for letting me go. Can I have the body back, please? No, you're too weird, but you can leave town. And then he moved up to Zephyr Hills, lived out his life up there, writing memoirs for Pulp Fiction magazine, selling off pictures and postcards of Elena. And for a small donation, he might even share his own version of the tale with you.
Wow. That's crazy.
So basically the story is a really weird old guy fell in love with a girl much younger than him. She died, and he spent 7 years sleeping with her corpse, which is beyond creepy. And for some reason, that's the most popular story in the tour, other than Robert.
I think it's just so unique and so bizarre and sick that it just kind of sticks in people's minds.
Right.
And I know you mentioned something on the tour where there was like a boat that she was on, or she was outside.
Well, he would take her on a romantic boat ride around the island. That's what there's nothing documented about that. That's what we call conklore.
Okay.
Where that story is passed down from one Key Wester to another. Like, okay, it makes sense, but then I question this: why did people allow that to happen? Who knows?
So could have. Who knows?
Could have.
Right. And for everyone listening, both of those stories, the houses are on Ted's tour, which it's really cool to see in person, hearing about it, and then seeing the place. And it's crazy how small everything is in relation. It's a couple.
It's even better to tell those stories in front of those places when there's somebody sitting in the balcony that's staying there, and they're going, "Whoa, wait, what?" Especially that Count von Cosel story, because that's these days. Where we tell that story is we used to be a funeral parlor where she would have been her funeral would have happened. But now it's a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous guest house it's like a really nice hotel. And it's not something they're advertising. Nobody knows about it until, of course, they're sitting on their balcony and a ghost tour rolls up in front of their pad and they overhear us telling their story. And sometimes, it's funny because I can see like a woman look at her, someone who's her husband sitting next to her on the balcony. And she'll say, "Did you know this?" You're like, "No, of course not." She'll slap him and say, "You put us in a haunted place where some guy slept with a dead girl?"
That's
I
so
say, I'll have to yell across the street and yell at him and say, "No, listen, this is not where he slept with a dead girl. This is just a funeral parlor. So you should be fine. You should be good. Don't worry. It's only a former funeral parlor. What could go wrong?"
Oh, that's hilarious. Do you get a lot of people
Yeah.
that will hear it kind of and wonder what the group is in front of their Airbnb, what info you're
Oh
sharing?
yeah. And then the second night they're in town, then they know what it is, so they'll be on their balcony waiting for us to come by, and they can inject their own flavor into the tour for us.
That's hilarious. And on your tour, one of the things I wanted to highlight also is I love the fact that in the beginning, um, you share with everyone that it's interactive, that you encourage us to take pictures and take
Oh
video
yeah,
just to see what we
absolutely.
capture. So I think that that's so interesting because a lot of tours that I've been on don't. It's more of just, kind of walking through. But this, I love that it's
Yeah.
interactive. So
I'm
thank you.
glad you enjoyed that part, because I hear that all the time where people say, "Wow, we never had a ghost tour guide or encourage us to tell or take pictures." Or sometimes we get bad reviews of people saying, they're complaining about, all the guy did was tell us to take pictures. Well, that's not necessarily true. We told a story too. So it's great to hear that you did appreciate that.
Yeah.
And with the photos, it's been interesting watching that evolve over the years. Because when I signed up first, that was all we had. There wasn't even digital cameras. We'd send people to Walgreens or CVS to go get their, those little throwaway cameras, tell them to take the photos. When you get the pictures developed back home, if you get something, snail mail it to us. And then we'd write them back and tell them what they had. But you had to depend on people remembering to even take the time to mail you a photo, because of course that costs money. That's postage. But people did, and the pictures we got back then were phenomenal, or with the actual cameras. And then we moved along came digital cameras, and those were really upsetting because they caught a lot of orbs, which is dust. So people got a lot of dust orbs basically, and that was a challenging time. And then there was a very small period of time where everybody was walking around with big tablets. Remember those?
Yeah.
And those lasted about 3 months of time. Those caught nothing. And now we're on to cell phones. And cell phones can be good and bad. Bad because, especially the technology they have today, those phones will erase all the blemishes immediately, automatically edit your photos. So they're perfect, flawless photos, ready for that perfect social media post. But sometimes when something does sneak through, then we know it's legit because it is getting past the auto edit, which is awesome. And like the apparitions we get these days there's times it looks like a full-blown person that was not there in the group, and they happen to be dressed in period gear from a different time. So it's cool when that happens.
Yeah. What's some advice that you would give someone coming on your tour, or even going to their own spooky place to try to, capture something?
Number one, be respectful. Well, actually, number one, get permission to be on that property. Make sure you're not trespassing. Know the history. Know what ghosts you're looking for. Don't just go out there, "Hey, ghost, is this place haunted? Is there somebody here?" Know who you're trying to talk to. If you can, if you make contact with them, try to help them out. See if they need any help or any assistance, or just try to learn their story more. Try to find out more about them. And number one, be respectful of who you're talking to. If they ask to be left alone, be left alone. Leave them alone. So, okay, you don't want to talk now? That's cool. I can respect that. Maybe tomorrow night.
And something else that I really liked that you mentioned before is taking a couple pictures back to back, because if it is
Yes.
or something.
Well, it could also be a fixed street light, or it could be like streaks from a street light. A lot of things it could be. But if you're taking it in multiple pictures back to back, and you did not move the camera, and so you have something in one photo but not the other, well, we know it's not a fixed object like a light. And that's when we can say, okay, well, that we have a ghost there probably. That's also why that's why I love with the phones now, I love the live photo function.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people to use a live photo, because before we always encourage people to take both photos, because you, in one picture back in the day, you might get in this corner of the picture, you see this giant orb. In the next picture, you see the orb is down in this corner. And we never really knew or really thought about what was the orb doing from here to here. But now in that live photo, it's like 1.5 or 2 seconds of a video, you can see these little orbs go like super fast, zoom and curve all over the place. And sometimes you might see them where they go straight across real quick. You can say, okay, that might be a bug. Maybe I'll give you that. But if you see doing all this sort of stuff and changing its fluctuation in energy and light, okay, again, we're onto something ghostly. And that's why I love the live photos.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like you probably get so many people on your tours that capture things or even later mention to you, oh, I saw this, or what do you think of this photo?
Oh, yeah. And I love it when that happens. Absolutely love it. Especially back in the day, when everybody on the tour was totally into ghosts, that would happen. Everybody's showing you pictures. And at that point, it was like, oh my God, I got to get home, eventually. It's like 12:30. Come on. Sorry. Send this to me. I'll tell you what you have. Email it to me. I'll show you what you have.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's challenging because people don't want to be the one to speak out about ghosts because they feel embarrassed. And I always try to remind people, especially on a ghost tour, you are surrounded by 30 people that signed up for a ghost tour. We're all in good company. No one's going to make fun of you if they do. If someone does, they're the ones on the outs, and we'll make fun of them. How's that sound? But these days, from where I'm standing, I see everything on the tour that everybody's doing. If there's two people talking, I see it. I can probably hear it. But if I see two people like holding the camera toward each other and showing each other a picture, I'll stop and I'll say, hey, did you capture something? I'm not calling them out. I'm not being rude. If they captured a ghost, I want to see it. Yes, yeah. I have fantastic pictures to share from my books or from my phone. But it's so much cooler to see a picture taken that night with your fellow guest. But these people, they don't want to get called out, or they're embarrassed. And they'll say, no, I got nothing. They're holding it to their chest. When I know they caught something, but I'll respect it. I'll say, okay, that's fair. And because I'm not gonna call somebody out or embarrass them, but I'm disappointed that I know they have something, but they don't want to share it. And then after the tour, when everybody else walks out, hey, let me show you what I caught. I'm like, yeah. Why didn't you say this during the tour when I knew you captured something? You still want to make me look like the idiot. Oh, yeah. I go, thanks.
Yeah.
So, advice that people going to ghost tours: show the pictures to your guide. We want to see them.
Yeah.
You're not holding up the tour. We want to see your pictures as you get them. It makes our night, actually.
Yeah, for sure. And something else that I loved about your tour is the fact that you incorporate investigating equipment in it as well, which is
and
awesome.
not too much. I don't do overkill. I want to point that out because there are tours around the country. It is a full-on hunt, and that is great for what they do as long as that's what they're doing. They're for 90 minutes or 2 hours. They're taking their guest out for a ghost hunt. They're going to teach them all the different equipment and how to use it, and that's awesome. Then there's the tours that are historic tours. That's more toward where we lean towards. We share the history more, but we just happen to include some ghost hunting, but not too much.
Yeah.
Like with the dowsing rods, I try to keep it under 10 minutes, or with any other equipment I might use, because if people are there for history and the stories, I want them to really hear the stories. This ghost hunt thing we're doing for 10 minutes, we're going to concentrate on ghosts for 10 minutes. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And it's cool just to get your feet wet. Maybe people have never experienced it before. So
exactly.
Just using it, I think, is awesome. And they see a different side of it.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite tool that you like on investigations?
I love the dowsing rods. I absolutely love the dowsing rods. And I didn't start using those on the tour, actually. Didn't start about halfway through my Key West Ghost and Mysteries career, so to speak. we were doing an investigation at the Porter Mansion, and one of the people that came in was what you'd expect to see in your mind when you picture psychic or medium, somebody with all the beads and the jingles and the old looking dress. And that's fine. But she had introduced these things called dowsing rods. I heard about them. I knew what they were. And she wants to, we're using equipment, digital equipment. She's using these little copper tubes, these sticks. And she shows us how to use them. She puts them in everyone's hands, These rods, you hold them out in front of you, and you ask a series of yes and no questions, and the rods will move in a way that indicates a yes or no. And everyone will have their own separate yes or no, because we're all different people, different personalities. So I'm watching these rods get passed through different and other investigators' hands during this investigation at the Porter Mansion, and they're having their reactions. That's cool. And I'm still in my head, kind of like rolling my eyes, going, yeah, okay, there's something to this. And then it gets to be my turn. I hold on the rods, find out my yes. I start asking questions. And the rod, and I found out my yes, by the way, was the one in my right hand will swing off to the right. And that's the way it's been ever since then. Mm-hmm. But it's having a huge reaction. All the other investigators, they're getting like these little wiggles back and forth with the rods. Mine did this huge swing. And I could actually feel weight and pressure going, like somebody's pressing the rod, moving it. And then I could start to feel electrical current going from my hands right up to my shoulder. And I go, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm feeling stuff here. I can actually feel something going on. And then after about 10 minutes, I was starting to feel completely drained, no energy. So I handed the rods back to the person the girl that brought them out. I went outside for a little break just to kind of recharge my mind because I needed to get outside and get some fresh air. When I came back, this girl that brought these dowsing rods handed those rods back to me, and she goes, "That is the best I've ever seen those rods work with anyone ever. I think these are yours." So I took them, and I'm like, "Thank you." And ever since then, I've used them on the rod. I've used them on the tour ever since.
Oh, and those are the same ones you use on your tours now.
Yeah, it took me a while. It took me a couple of weeks to figure out how I wanted to use them on the tour, but I eventually got rolled into it and figured it out. But people love it. I've had a lot of people, after every tour, I would want to know what people think, and I'll say, "What was your favorite story?" A lot of people say the dead girl, but a lot of people say the rods, the interactive. And I said, "Well, yeah, but what was your favorite story?" They go, no, the rods was my favorite part. I go, cool. And that's why I keep doing them.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a really special experience. Do you
Thanks.
have a favorite story that you like sharing?
Boy, oh boy. I think probably the Von Costel story, actually, I have to admit, just because the reactions it gets from people. It's such a shocking story. I mean, the dude slept with a dead girl for 7 years. But I mean, technically, though, if he believes she's alive, is she dead? Right? Because he was talking to her, right?
Yeah, maybe he was off in his didn't even realize it to some extent.
Yeah, right. Well, they say, I mean, if you're super brainiac, all those brains kick out common sense, and there's no room for anything else. You have all the brains. You're going to be smart as heck, but you're not going to have room for anything else in your brain.
Yeah, I don't think there was any room left. And also, you are an author of 7 or 8 books.
8. And I just finished number 9 today. So now I'm working to edit. Thank you. Yeah, there's, of course, books about ghosts. There's Scared, which is a behind-the-scenes look at paranormal investigating. Because along the tour, in between stops, people always ask, "Hey, so what's the scariest thing you've ever seen, man?" And you've been on the tour, in between stops, I have 2 minutes at best to tell that story. Maybe not even that long. Plus, it gets to be a question I'm answering every night. So I decided, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book about this. So that way, if anyone asks, "Hey, what's the scariest thing you've seen on a tour?" I can say, boy, there's this, but you know what? I wrote a book about it. So you can read about it, actually. So I wanted to write a book about the scariest things I've seen on the tour. And that evolved as I was writing it into writing about all the investigations I've done. So it ended up being a book about behind the scenes look at investigations, because people were all into these ghost hunting shows, whether it be Taps or Zach Bagans, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You see the stuff on the shows, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I ended up writing about that. And then all the stuff about the scariest thing I've seen on the ghost tour, that ended up being a chapter at the very end that I called "In This One Time on the Ghost Tour." So I just shared quick paragraph stories about ghost tour things. And the rest is all about investigations. Then the other two books that relate to ghosts are Key West Photogenic 1 and 2. And they're both collections of ghost pictures I've collected over the years from people on the tour. And the first book is all the pictures and the history behind ghost photography, how it came about, why it's around, and how you should really look at it. Then the second book, same thing, pictures from the ghost tour, but this time the history behind those pictures and the buildings they incorporate. And then for other books, I went into a fictional series called the Peking Islands series. You know how Stephen King incorporates all of his stories into Maine?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're reading any of his stories, they take same thing with the Peking Islands are a universe that I created in my head called the Peking Islands. And it's kind of like, think Key West meets the mountains of Tennessee. Because two things that I hold near and dear to my heart, two areas I love. So I created a universe where it has both mountains and the seawater. So basically, any fictional story that takes place in the Peking Islands, the characters from those stories, while not related, in theory, could have crossed paths at one point in their universe. Right now, there's 3 books in that, and there's a 4th that I'm actually going to start writing since I just started writing this last book. So it'll be 4 books soon in Peking Island series. There is also Until It Sleeps, which is a book that tells about what it's like to have brain cancer. Since I am a brain cancer warrior, I was diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma, which is brain cancer. It's terminal brain cancer. You will not make it past this. Most people don't make it past 3 months, and beyond that, the rest, maybe 6 months, maybe. So I was told, you are going to die in 6 months. This is what happens. This is the way it is. Sorry. Prepare for it. I ended up making it 8 months. And at that point, I said, I wanted to write a book about this to prepare people what to expect. Since I went into this blind, I didn't even know what it was. So I didn't want other people to go into it blind like I did. So I wrote a book about it. But I wrote it haphazardly and quickly because I thought I was going to die at the time. I was told, this is terminal. You're going to die soon. Here I am 19 months later. I'm still here. I'm going well, yeah, thank you. Well beyond expectations. I'm at the point now where I'm in what we call the 25% club. Only 25% of people diagnosed with it make it this far. The next step would be the 6.9%, and that's people that make it to 5 years. But with Until It Sleeps, that basically covers what it was like getting this. Getting something that I had no idea what I had at the time, or even what it was. Spending the first 4 weeks in a hospital, getting all these tests and surgeries, diagnosis, whatever, and then spending the next few months in and out of MRIs and more tests, and what it was like to live with this. And then I ended it at 8 months because I thought that was the end. So then after now, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to write a second book, follow-up, 8 months to now 16 months, to really go into more detail and write the book where it makes a lot more sense. Because at first, when I'll admit, when I wrote that book, I was on a lot of different medications and going through radiation and chemotherapy at the time. So it shows I was a little bit loopy when I wrote that book, but which is great because it shows the mindset of somebody who's going through that.
I was going to ask if your mindset had shifted or if you have a different perspective on where you were from where you are now.
Yes, I still do have a lot of issues. Physically, there's a lot of things I cannot do that I wish I could, that I used to all the time. I mean, I can't even ride a bike anymore. My leg doesn't work in that way. My right leg from the knee down is about 30% numb. My ankle will not rotate. My toes will not move. I could look at my toes all day and use that Jedi mind trick. Move, move, move. Nothing happens. Those are paralyzed, which, yeah, I'm upset about, but it could be a lot worse considering I could be dead.
Right.
Or going through 2 craniotomies. My surgeon said this is what could happen. And they say, one of the things that could happen is you could end up irreversibly paralyzed from the neck down. And they say that's 45% chance. And that's when you open your eyes and, whoa, hold the phone. Did you say 45%? That's pretty high. And irreversible from the neck down? You mean there's no way you can fix it? And I said, I don't know, dude. I don't know if I take that chance. I think I'll skip the surgery and just go with the cancer. But I rolled the dice twice. And I ended up with some repercussions, but I'm alive. And I didn't end up completely paralyzed. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you. And that's just very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and the other book, is called Words Without Music. That's a poetry book.
Nice.
I want to put my word. I want it. I want to get my words out there. I can say I'm a musician, which means I know how to play guitar. I know how to play piano, but I'm not really good. Not good enough to get up on stage anyway. And I definitely cannot sing. But I have so many words and so many songs in me. And I wanted to get them out. So I said, I'm just going to come up with a poetry book. And for some reason, I've kept a lot of my poetry through the years. And that book goes through 3 different chapters. It starts with my turbulent youth, which if anyone ever reads that book, let me say I'm not the person that wrote those poems anymore. Those like from my teenage and younger 20s years when I was a completely troubled person. And the second chapter is about life in Key West. So you get life from an islander's perspective of living on an island, and those are all inspired by life living on an island. Then the third chapter is all about cancer. And just like my Until It Sleeps books, it's looking at cancer with a positive light. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, woe is me, this sucks, I feel bad. No, it's finding a way to look at it positively. While acknowledging this is here. But I'm going to stay and fight it. And while I have it, while I'm here, I'm going to do what I can, when I can, keep on keeping on.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. But the scary thing, though, about getting that book out was thinking, my parents are going to read this. It's probably, especially that first chapter. Mm-hmm. And they're going to say, well, this explains a lot. So before I could even tell them, though, hey, don't buy this book. Don't read it. They already did. No, but they enjoyed it. So I was like, because I was expecting so many questions from that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you just have to speak your truth, and other people might not understand, but I think you're setting your soul free in some way.
Yeah, my truth to anybody else I don't care about, but to your parents, you think about, do you want your parents knowing you can share your deepest, darkest secrets with a stranger, but when it comes to sharing it with your parents, like, oh boy.
Got some explaining to do here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Ted. I have just a few roundup questions.
Yes, sir.
So do you have like a number one place that you dream of investigating or touring?
Trans-Allegheny Museum in West Virginia. And not museum, it's a abandoned nut house.
Insane asylum, right?
Insane asylum, yeah. It's in West Virginia. That place is just crazy haunted. I would love to go investigate that. Or I would love to go to the Cecil in LA if I could have some bodyguards with me, because I hear it's not the greatest part of town.
Yeah, it's right downtown, but it's close to Skid Row. So, I mean, there's always something going on over there, but...
So I might call you and say, hey, you want to walk along with me?
I'll find a way to get in, but once we're in, we could explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of mine too. Do you have the most intense encounter you've had or scariest experience?
I would say, let me think here. So when I was going out to a place called Turtle Creek or Turtle Lake, North Dakota, this is a long time ago. I was going out to investigate a murder that had happened out there. There's a family of 7 that was all murdered in one day. And it was actually a dispute between 2 farmers over a dog crossing somebody's property line, which is insane. I mean, that indicates a short fuse, I think. But one guy was upset and he murdered this other guy's entire family, all 7 of them in one day. And if you go out there, you can see their headstones all lined up next to each other. And it's just bizarre to see all the death dates are exactly the same of an entire family. So I went out there to investigate that story. But what I ended up getting into was a lot more intense. Apparently out in that area, there's a lot of witchcraft or devil worshippers or something going on. And plus you walk into this town. I mean, it's a small town, man. You only see it in the movies, you know, like where you walk into the bar and the music stops and everybody looks at you. You know, can you picture what I'm talking? That kind of place. Where you feel like I don't belong in this town. I need to get out of here because these people are looking at me like I'm the city slicker from the other side of the country. And there's a creepy vibe going on in the whole town. So I ended up coming back about 3 days later. But on my way out, I remember, you know, at my hotel windows, I could hear tapping on the glass when I was trying to sleep that night, which everybody knew where I was because it's not a tourist town at all. I was probably the only out-of-state plate or car. I was probably the only car that people didn't recognize in town. So they all knew who the stranger in town was, and he's out investigating this stuff. And it's North Dakota. Don't know if you've ever been in North Dakota, but it's very dusty. Your car will be covered in dust within the afternoon. So I walked out to my car the next day. There's all these weird like witchcraft signs that you could tell somebody put in with their finger all over the dust in my car. So I left 3 days early. I mean, I didn't ask for money back in the hotel. I dropped off my key and said, I'm checking out. Bye.
What was the name of the murder or the town? Did it have like a?
The name of the town, the family was the Wolf family.
Oh wow.
And the town was either Turtle Creek or Turtle Lake. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it is in my book, Scared. I should look it up sometime.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I've never heard of that story before.
Well, it's not really a ghost story. I mean, it's a murder story. It is bizarre that entire family was murdered in one day. And just the town itself is kind of vibey. Of course, I probably just annoyed that entire town by talking bad about them. Now I'm going to have them come get me.
Yeah, but just the fact that like the witchcraft and then the like different.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you get more than you bargain for. I went out there to investigate a murder story and maybe run into some ghosts and ended up getting this entire town overrun by some people that are into some weird stuff and don't like strangers.
Right, they like it the way it is.
Right.
And then one other question I wanted to ask, do you have a picture or a video that's your most compelling evidence that you've captured?
Oh, man.
Or just that comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm just trying. Unfortunately, the pictures that were the best are all gone. Gosh, I wish there's this one picture that was by far the best picture I've ever seen. And it was like a trick picture too, because it was in front of the theater where a bunch of children, 17 kids and their choir teacher were burned down. They burned alive in the church. And this is a story we tell on the tour. And this one time a guest had caught a picture. If you look at it head on, it looks kind of like just like a regular girl. Well, you can say it's not a regular. You can tell it's a ghost girl looking straight at the camera. But then some reason, if you tilted the picture the right way, you could see her like all of a sudden she had hands like up to her face like this. It was like a trick, one of those trick photos, but it was real because, you know, I was there the night it was taken. There was nobody standing there doing that. And I was there when that picture got developed, so I know there was no trickery to it. That was awesome. And man, that's one of those pictures where I constantly kick myself in the butt for losing that picture. because the thing is, it was a real picture, and this was before we didn't have social media at the time, so no way to save the pictures like that.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I've heard multiple people saying that, they had their best photos and evidence on actual photos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, thank you so much, Ted, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you
I
want to share
appreciate.
any of your social media or your websites or how anyone can check out
Okay.
your
Yeah. Thank
course and
you.
your books.
It's real simple. Whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, it is all the same handle, Southernmost Ted. My name is Ted, and I am the Southernmost Ted in the contiguous United States. For the books, the link is in the bio on Instagram and Facebook, but not TikTok, because you have like so many followers on TikTok to put that link.
And
That's how you get the books.
below in the show notes too. So
Yeah.
all your links will
Yeah.
be there too.
Yeah. And those links will take you directly to my Amazon page. That way you can see all of my books. Because if you just type in my name on Amazon for some reason, you get like one or two of the books. But you want to get all of them, but you do.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.